understanding something a very significant motivation? I think it is like understanding something about.
What is actually the black hole information paradox? Hello, Dr. Raju. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining.
And thank you very much for having me.
So, before we could talk about anything else, could you take a couple of minutes in talking about what your research is and what do you work on currently?
Well, so I would describe myself as a string theorist primarily, but string theory is actually a pretty broad word. My work spans work on quantum gravity and black holes, quantum field theory, and more recently, I've actually also been interested in AI/ML and science for AI, and also AI for science. So I can tell you more about any of those things if you'd like to hear.
Yeah, actually, I had a lot of questions about that, because that is particularly which I am interested in as well. So we'll get to that in a while. So
Sure.
since I have also seen majority of work revolves around black holes. So if somebody asks you what is a black hole, what would you answer what a black hole is from a theorist's perspective?
Well, from a theorist perspective, a black hole is actually defined in a, there's a precise definition of a black hole, yeah? And but there's also a lay definition of a black hole, which is in fact not a bad definition to go by, which is that it's some region of space-time from which even light cannot escape. So once you're within that region of space-time, then you can't go off to infinity or you can't exit that region of space-time. Not even light can exit that region of space-time. Yeah? So that's basically what a black hole is. It's some bounded region of space-time. So of course, you could just define some region of space-time and which is itself expanding at the speed of light, and then of course light can't escape it. But the point of a black hole is that at least viewed from outside, it's a bounded region of space-time, and light can't escape it. So that's not a bad. That say black holes, and that's not a bad definition of a black hole.
So black hole information paradox is known as one of the most popular problems in physics. So what is actually the black hole information paradox?
Okay, the black hole information paradox is a paradox that emerges when you put together quantum mechanics and our theory of gravity, which is the general theory of relativity. A very fundamental principle in quantum mechanics is that time evolution has to be reversible. In fact, it's not just a principle in quantum mechanics, it's a principle in all of physics as we understand it, which is that given the state of the world at one point of time, you can predict the future, but you can also retrodict the past. So if you have one state at this instant, it evolves into one state in the future, and it came from one state in the past. The black hole information paradox was a proposal that was made in the 70s by Hawking, that this principle wouldn't hold for black holes when you added some quantum effects. And he suggested that quantum effects would cause the black hole to evaporate, but evaporate in such a way that two distinct black holes could go to the same final state. So we now believe that Hawking evaporation is real, in that if you had a black hole, it would evaporate. These effects are real. They're very hard to measure because they're extremely delicate effects. But I would say most physicists who work in the field would say that this is a correct calculation. The part of the calculation that we don't think is correct is the idea that different black holes would evolve into the same final black hole. So we think that that part of the calculation is wrong. And so there isn't a paradox. We think that quantum mechanics and gravity can be put together without any such inconsistency. So even though black holes evaporate, the evaporation of distinct black holes gives rise to distinct states of the final radiation.
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong. I see a lot of string theorists also work in the black hole information paradox, and I have often heard that black holes are considered as one of the best places to study quantum gravity. So is that true? And if it is, why?
Well, yeah. So first of all, I mean, you were saying earlier also it's one of the most popular topics and a lot of people work on it. That's not really true in a sense. In fact, the set of people who really think a lot about the information puzzle is not very large. Recently there was one stream of work that was done in the information paradox, which was the computation of these things called page curves, and a lot of people started doing that because they were kind of simple computations to do. But the number of people who really have carefully about the information paradox is not that large. That's a side comment, yeah. So the next question you're asking me is, is it true that black holes are a good place to think about quantum gravity? Yes, black holes are a good place to think about quantum gravity because they bring to the fore these kinds of, potential contradictions. You see, the thing to understand about quantum gravity is that how do we make progress? Usually in physics, we make progress because uh, we rely on the fact that there could be many possible consistent theories, but there's only one theory which matches nature, and so we rely on experiments to see which theory matches nature. That's what is sometimes called external consistency. Theory has to be consistent with the world outside.
Right.
On the other hand, in quantum gravity, we don't have those experiments because the effects of quantum gravity are extremely delicate, so they're very hard to measure. So in quantum gravity, what we have to rely on is the fact that we know some other principles that were well established, like the principles of quantum mechanics, like some other facets of gravity that we have tested experimentally. And it so happens, and in fact, this is what allows us to make progress, that putting these well-known principles together itself turns out to be a very hard task and gives rise to a rather rigid kind of theory, a theory that doesn't allow too many modifications. So black holes are one case where there's one setting where this rigidity becomes apparent. And that's why black holes are a good test bed to study. Not everyone thinks about black holes. And maybe one more thing to say is that in the end, if we were to come up with experimental tests of quantum gravity, and hopefully we will, maybe not immediately, but in the decades to come, my own feeling is that it's not clear that they will involve black holes. So the kind of, for instance, a very interesting aspect of gravity is something that we've worked a lot on the past years, is the fact that in any theory of quantum gravity, if you make measurements in not in a region but in surrounding a region, so if you have some region in the middle and you make measurements around it, then that is sufficient for you to determine what is inside the region. This is an effect that we call the holography of information. Now, this effect is not an effect that relies on black holes. It's important for understanding the black hole information paradox, but it doesn't rely on the necessary presence of black holes.
Right.
So in the end, I think that if you were to test quantum gravity, would be a very promising test of quantum gravity. It's something you could do without black holes.
Since you spoke a lot about experimental factors, there is one line in this Oppenheimer movie that theory can only take you so far. So, based on that, what do you think is which point do you think is the bottleneck at theory? And you feel that beyond this, if I want to attack this problem, theory is my limit here. Like only experiment can take it further.
No, I think there are many such issues where the theory is not so right. So I think there are many such settings where theory clearly can't tell you what the right answer is, right? Just theory alone. As I said, the reason that we are able to make progress in the field of quantum gravity is because the theory of quantum gravity looks like it has some rigidity, and putting together quantum mechanics and gravity is something which is hard to do. Now, the things where we can be pretty sure that we are saying something about nature are places where the principles that you already understand about quantum mechanics and the principles you already understand about gravity force some other unexpected feature upon you. Okay? So this effect that I just described, which is the holography of information, which is the idea that if you make measurements surrounding a region, then in fact you can determine what's happening inside the region without actually directly making measurements there, is one such effect. Right, so this idea of holography has been around for much longer,
Right.
but often people would associate it with some specific aspects of string theory. or saying that, so string theory involves, is as I said, a vast theory, but it also involves several postulates about what happens at very short distances. And we don't know, and we can't know whether those postulates are correct. So this feature that I was saying, the our contribution in a sense was to say that, the basic aspects of quantum mechanics and gravity force this remarkable property of quantum information and gravity upon you, that you can make measurements surrounding a region and determine what's happening in the region. And so that's something that, theory can tell you. Theory can tell you because, there's some logical deduction that you can make from the principles that you know. There are other things that theory can't tell you, right? Clearly, there are many aspects of string theory also that involve assumptions about what's happening at short distances, and we don't know if those assumptions are true.
Right.
So there are some things theory can tell you, and there are many things theory can't tell you. So I think it's interesting to work on those aspects of the theory where you're making as few assumptions about the world as possible. But there are others who maybe work on different aspects of the theory. You might want to advance the theory for the theory's sake because it's interesting mathematics and so on. But there are also some things you can say about nature where theory can help.
Right. So initially you were talking about your interest towards AI. So I wanted to get more clarity on that. What do you work on? Like, are you, the direction?
Well, the thing that I find most remarkable about modern developments in AI/ML is that first we have these really remarkable systems, right? We have these large language models that certainly are doing things that I would not have thought were possible 5 years ago. We didn't think that you would have these models that are basically capable of, speaking a natural language, coding the way they do, doing other tasks the way they do. So that's very remarkable. But the other thing that's very striking about the field is how poorly developed the theory of these models is. So, these models work, and we all know that they work, but our understanding of why they work, or, what is happening inside these models is actually remarkably poor. It's remarkably ill-developed. And so what really, as a theorist, I find that intolerable kind of state of affairs. And what I would really like to do is contribute to some extent to understanding how and why these systems work and having some description of these systems. It's kind of a unusual place in technology. Like this computer we are talking through, I don't know everything about how it works, right? I don't know how it's wired up and so on, but basically we understand how it works pretty well. Right? And I understand how the different systems work. And in most technology things, it's like that. I basically understand how my car works. Of course, I don't understand many detailed things about how the car works. I couldn't put it together or something, but I think we understand the basic principles of how the car works. But these are systems which are very different in that they're playing such an important role and they're so remarkable, and we don't seem to understand rather basic things about how and why they do what they do. And that I find very interesting. Now, also, it's also interesting. So that's what I would call science for AI, understanding that aspect. It's also interesting to ask AI for science questions, to ask whether these models can contribute to physics, to theoretical physics. So that's another thing I'm interested in.
Like based on what you say, it seems like you're more interested into core machine learning than incorporating machine learning into your research. Is that so? Like in case if you have incorporated ML into your research, and did you have a significant result to show up for?
No, I would say I'm more in. I spoke a little bit more about science for AI than AI for science. AI for science, which is what you're saying, is also clearly something very interesting. AI for AIML techniques haven't really had a huge impact on the kind of theoretical physics I do. The reason they haven't had a huge impact is we don't do data-rich stuff. We don't do stuff where there's a lot of data and you can fit patterns to the data, which is what these models are good at. We are often looking for, simplicity. We're looking for patterns, right? We're looking for not patterns where you have a lot of data, but deep patterns, right? We're looking for deep explanations of the world. And the models are not currently in a position to do that. The models are getting better, though, at doing simple calculations. I mean, by simple calculations, are calculations which might in fact often take up the bulk of a paper that one writes. In terms of writing a paper, they often a lot of the time is not working on the grand idea, but working out small things. And the models have now become some of the models have become good enough to do that many times. But whether that will advance to really having, significant ideas, we don't know. And how one could use AI/ML models for theoretical physics is, I mean, many people are trying different things. We're also trying different things, but I don't think there's a sharp answer or a clear result yet.
Right. So I keep asking this question to all the theorists I talk to. So there was one conversation between CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Professor David Dust, like where Sam Altman asked Professor David that if one day an advanced model like GPT-8 could come and resolve quantum gravity, so would he appreciate and accept the so-called AI supremacy? So do you think that kind of thing is possible, seeing the advancement of AI every day?
It might be, so first of all, I mean, neither of these individuals works in quantum gravity, but but okay, so it's not clear what they mean by solving quantum gravity. But it's true, people say that, but solving quantum gravity is kind of a vague term, so we don't know what it would mean for. Hello. Yeah, we don't know what it would mean for AI to solve quantum gravity. I mean, if someday some AI system were to come down and just sit down and write some paper which completely changes our understanding of quantum gravity on its own, then sure, we would definitely accept that's absolutely remarkable, right? But uh, I don't think we're in a setting where that is about to happen, in the near future. Now, I could be wrong, because as I said 5 years ago, I wouldn't have predicted that the models would be where they are right now. But it doesn't seem that we are in a setting where that's going to happen immediately. What the models look like they're good at doing, as I said, is helping in different parts of the calculation and helping in different parts of research. And that's great. Now that's already quite significant, right? Because these are calculations, as I said, that really are an important part of what we do. But um, uh, it's so far not clear to me that the models are in a position to write some path-breaking paper on quantum gravity on their own.
So you do see that more of like an assistive tool, but you don't think that it is capable at this point to think like an independent researcher.
At this point, it's absolutely clear. I don't think that's really a matter of opinion. At this point, I think it's clear that the top of the line models are not in a position to act as independent researchers, and they act as assistive tools. Now, the question of what will happen a few years from now, we don't know.
Okay. So you are you
Maybe the
saying that
models
that
will.
might be a possibility. You're not completely
Yeah,
neglecting that.
yeah, we shouldn't. I mean, we shouldn't bet against the possibility that the models in a few years from now might be doing remarkable things. We also shouldn't bet against the possibility that their progress might saturate at some point.
Right.
In fact, for people like me who want to understand science for AI, that might not be, it would be a nice thing if they saturate. We would have some time to understand how they do things, why they do things, and they're already extremely useful. But and there are many other aspects of what kind of impact they would have on society and many other things. And in many ways, it's a uneasy prospect to imagine these models continuing to improve at the rate that they're doing. But of course, we don't know. They might.
That's great. And I got this question from a lot of audiences. Like, for example, if you take an engineer or somebody like that, like they have something to show up as they work, or experimentalists as well. So, in that regard, like theorists do not have some real practical applications, at least in the immediate present. Like they have, like we don't know what application their theories or lemmas would have. So, that considering that, what actually keeps them motivated to do what they are doing? Is it just
Really,
blind passion?
isn't understanding something a very significant motivation? I think it is, like understanding something about how a system works. I think is very satisfying. Uh, I often find it much more satisfying than just improving the system. So that's what you're saying about engineering. I mean, and then maybe that's a question of taste, but I think understanding the world or understanding issues of quantum mechanics and gravity, or even understanding issues of how these AI/ML systems work, like I feel that that issue of understanding and getting clarity is kind of is very significant. In fact, isn't that the central purpose in some sense of what we, of course, we would, that when we speak of science, the main thing that science brings to us in some sense is understanding. Of course, it also brings practical benefits, but a very important aspect of what it does is brings a better understanding of nature, and that's worthwhile, right? Clearly, in its own right.
So yeah, like I also think about this fact. Obviously, like when they have something to productionize, there's a lot of money involved. So that would be an additional motivation factor for people doing engineering and something like that.
True. I mean, it's true that there is sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, what is it? So it's true that when you look for, yeah. So I mean, clearly for theorists, financial gain is not what we are looking for, right? If you're looking for an understanding of the world, that's not. But it's pretty having an understanding of the world, understanding how things work, is really very important, and it's also, as I said, it's satisfying in a certain deep way. So it's so I wouldn't underestimate the significance of that or underplay the significance of that. Sure. I mean, I mean, if there are many ways to earn money. So money is not really what is the most significant. I mean, clearly, it's not the thing that we are mostly looking for.
And I also wanted to ask you, what do you look for in while taking in a PhD student?
Oh, what do you look for in taking a PhD student? Well, that's a complicated question. I don't think there's anything we look for specifically in taking a PhD student. I mean, PhD students that I've taken have all been through ICTS. And they are students who are interested in what I do, and I guess as an advisor I'm a very I like I'm a pretty hands-off advisor, so it's important that the students that I have be very independent and be work on their own. uh, so that's but they have to be interested and independent. That's what I would look for.
So we are almost nearing to the end of the podcast. I have last a couple of questions for you. If you could go back in time and fix something from your past, what would it be and why?
There isn't so much I want to fix. I'm mostly a pretty happy kind of person, and I think I'm also a pretty lucky kind of person. So there isn't so much I would like to fix. Since we were talking about these AI/ML models, maybe one thing I would like to fix is if I could go back 5 or 6 years ago and recognize the extent of the revolution that was coming and start thinking about it earlier. That might have been better. So that's something I think about nowadays. That it was kind of silly of me not to realize how significant these models were going to be, or to underestimate how significant they were going to be. I think yeah. But okay, I mean that's not a no. I don't have any very significant regrets or things that I want to fix in my life. I mean, of course, there's small things one could fix here and there, but there is nothing very significant that I would want to fix again.
That's great, Dr. Raju. So what is one final advice you would like to give somebody who wants to pursue science?
Oh, I don't know. There's one single advice I have to give to people, to students who are starting out doing science. Uh, you know, um, Things are actually changing very rapidly. And in fact, one of the reasons things are changing is because of the advances in AI. But it is important, as I said. I mean, maybe just relating to the conversation that we were having. I think some things that are very important is that someone who's pursuing science should have some, high level of curiosity about the world and a desire to understand the world better. That's true, by the way, not just in theory, but also in experiment. In the end, when we do experiments, we are just trying to understand the world better. So that's something that's very important. to have. And given how rapidly things are changing, I think it's important that people should also be open-minded and willing to learn new things and learn new techniques. And so if they're open-minded and curious, I think that would be the most important thing. And they should ask themselves if that's something that they really want to do and spend time on.
So thank you, Dr. Raju. We are done with the podcast. Thank you again so much for taking time to join us.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay.